Man, happy Sunday to you. Just maybe by way of housekeeping, I'm not trying to do something cool by sitting down, okay? I just want, some people try to be like edgy and neat. That's never been me. No, if you were here on Christmas Eve, you know, but yeah, I've been fighting something off for it'll be 3 weeks on Wednesday. So, so I'm just sitting down. So I feel super weird doing it, but hopefully next week I'll be able to stand up. That's a good goal. But if not, then I'll just be that guy that sits down for a while. But hey, a couple things by way of, just by way of our calendar to make you aware of. Next week we'll be kicking off our study for this year, at least the first part of this year, where we're going to look at the life of Moses. And we're planning right now on at least going Moses through the Exodus, and then we'll just kind of see how we feel at that point, if we want to go into the wilderness or not. But just depends on if we're in that hunter-gatherer kind of mood. But no, we got that going on. And then next Sunday we also have a really fun event for your kids and your youth. It's called Snow Glow Sunday. And all I can really say about it is that it's going to be really fun, because that's all I really know. But it's going to be a lot of fun. It should be a great event. But hey, it is the first Sunday of 2026, and as we head into a new year, I just kind of like to think back on me in 2025 and what happened in 2025 that is like, man, worth just celebrating. And so many incredible things happened here at the church that I could pick out. I mean, I could talk about our youth retreat that happened a year ago. I could talk about our block party. I could talk about the kids and the first year in the new building. There's so many things I could say. But the two things I think about is I'm just like putting a bow on a year. I think about the fact that over 80 people were baptized here last year, which is such an incredible thing. Man, that was a fake clap if I've ever seen one, man. Like, there was a woo over there, and then it was like, well, I guess we got, like, that was why. It's all right. It's the first Sunday of the year. And so I think about that, and I'm just like, man, that's so crazy. Like, people from all walks of life, people from all ages, all stages, and just to think that here, in this place, that many people committed to just say, hey, I'm gonna take the next step. I think that's so incredible what God's doing. And then the one that, I didn't know what to expect, and I know Pastor Ryan Goeden mentioned it a couple weeks ago, but I just think it's nuts that New Life Church built 8.5 churches in Africa. That is so nuts to me. Now everyone's nervous to clap. I love it. Man, this is a mind game I'm playing right now. But I think about that, and I think, man, how crazy is that? That even as you look at what God's called the church to do, that we're seeing lives changed here. And we're also able to be part of God changing lives on the other side of the world. We exist to help people know Jesus better. And the fact that we're seeing it happen in both places is such an incredible gift from God. But the thing I think about is I right before we built the new addition, so this is 2 years ago, and the Lorax is going to hate this prayer. But I walked out the back doors. They're getting ready to build. And I was just kind of looking, and in that part of the building, and when you're standing out there, what you see is a great view of our property line. It's just like a barbed wire fence. And I just remember praying, God, I pray that we would have no grass. I pray that every square inch of this property would be used to help people know Jesus better. And then I learned some stuff about egress, and there'll always be grass out front because, the city owns it, but we pay for it. But I think if we put that parking lot back there, and we are at a place right now, even in our property, where almost every square inch that we can use, we are using it to help people know Jesus better, which is so incredible to think that happened last year. And so as we head into 2026, it's like, okay, well, what is it that God wants to do? And as I think about as I think about heading into a new year, I know that really we're just changing a calendar, but for whatever reason, it seems like things restart. And I always feel two things as we head into a new year. One, I always feel excitement. Like, I always feel excitement because it's just like literally right now, there are people who are not here, who aren't coming this weekend, who don't have a relationship with Jesus, and at the end of the year, they're going to be in this room worshiping Jesus. Like, that's nuts to me to think that God's going to transform lives this year. Like, so I get very excited. Like, I'm like, what are the stories that we're going to tell at the end of 2020? Like, I'm very excited. But there's also a part of me, just to be honest with you, that is always a little nervous and always a little nervous or afraid to go into a new year, because here's what I know. That just because something happened doesn't mean that it's going to continue to happen. And as it pertains to God building his church, I know this too, that Jesus uses us in the process of him building his church. So in order for us to see something incredible happen, it's going to require God using us to do what he's asked us to do. And part of the onus of that is on us being obedient to what he asks him to do, or what he asks us to do. So I want to do kind of a standalone message this week, and just kind of look at how God can use us this year to make an incredible difference here at New Life Church. And so if you got a Bible, I'll be in 2 Corinthians, and I'll read 2 Corinthians chapter 8, and I'm going to read the first 7 verses of chapter 8. It says this: "We want you to know, brothers, about the grace of God that has been given among the churches of Macedonia. For in a severe test of affliction, their abundance of joy and their extreme poverty has overflowed in a wealth of generosity on their part. For they gave according to their means, as I can testify, and beyond their means of their own accord, begging us earnestly for the favor of taking part in the relief of the saints. And this, not as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord, and then by the will of God to us. Accordingly, we urge Titus that as he started, so he should complete among you this act of grace. But as you excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in all earnestness, and in our love for you, see that you also excel in this act of grace." So what I want to do is I want to look at 3 ways that we all can be part of what God is doing in New Life in 2026. And the first one is this. Is give to the mission. Man, first point of the year, right? Like, really? You're like, man, I came to this first point of the year, really? Well, here's the good news, all right, guys? It's all downhill from here, all right? So whatever. But no, and here's what the thing about talking about this that is so, like, difficult is when you talk about this, I got to pay for the sins of all the fools who have abused it over the years. Like, as soon as you get up and talk about it, you're like, well, you start thinking about the dude in the jet, right? Or the guy who did all the weird stuff, or had all the, and it's so challenging in that regard. But I would just say this, okay? Just to like, hey, this is what we do to steward what comes in here. So I have a board, and I'm one vote on a board, okay? Every month what happens is our board comes in together, and one of the fixtures of the board meeting is that we look at this handy document called a profit and loss. We look at it line by line, and we talk about anything that we need to talk about. And what that does is it provides incredible accountability for what comes in and what goes out. Beyond that, not only do we have a board that serves to help us with this, but we do this crazy thing every year where we present the finances to the church, and the church votes on them, which is crazy, man. You get up here, and you're like, what do you guys think? And it's there. And here, why do you do that? Well, it provides accountability. If we're saying, hey, participate in giving, and one of the ways that you help people know Jesus better is through your generosity, then for us, it's important that we say, hey, it's not just one guy making all the decisions when it comes to that. And so we put those pieces in place, but even though we put those in place, I think it's really important to realize, like, giving to the mission of the church, that isn't something that, like, started in the 1900s. That if you go all the way back to 2 Corinthians, so it's not the first one, but the second one, as Paul is talking about advancing the gospel all over the world, he brings up generosity. That from the very beginning, that some 20 years after Jesus rose from the dead, Paul is saying, man, to be part of this is one of the ways that you can be part of what God is doing. And man, I'll tell you what, in verse 7, he leans in. Look at what he says here. He says, but as you excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in all earnestness, and in our love for you, see that you excel in this act of grace also. Man, here what Paul is doing is he is putting the act of giving generously, he's putting it pretty high. If you notice, he puts it right up there with faith and love. He's saying, and I think that all of us would agree, that we should, as we walk with Jesus, we should excel in faith and we should excel in love. And Paul is saying, in the same way that you excel in faith and love, you too should excel in being generous. And here's the thing, I think that this is twofold, why Paul does it. One, I think it's incredibly practical. And two, I think that it's also incredibly spiritual. First, let's just look at kind of practically why I think this matters. And the church is a spiritual thing. There are spiritual things happening in this room even right now, and it's how it works. But as we are a spiritual thing, that we are also a thing that operates in the real world. So just use an example, that if our mortgage company sends us a bill for our mortgage, and I just write them back, hey, Midmo, good to hear from you. We're a church. We're not going to pay. They would send me a letter back, and they would say, hey, New Life, we're a bank. We're going to take the bill. That's how it works. We play by the same rules as everyone else plays by. Even if we go to Walmart, to buy the resources to do the things that God asked us to do here. If we walk into Walmart, we don't bring our wallet, but we bring a picture of the church. And we're like, this is where we work, and this is who it's for. They would say, okay, how are you going to pay for it? Because we operate in the real world. So here's what happens when you give. As you give, it enables us to do what God's called us to do. It provides the means for us to accomplish the things that God has asked. And what's really cool about it spiritually is that it enables you to be part of things that maybe where you're not naturally gifted, or part of things where you naturally wouldn't want to be part of it. I think of it with this way, I used to do this thing at the Sunday after Thanksgiving every year, where I would preach in kids and then I would go preach in youth. Okay, and I would do both. I'd preach 6 times in a day, and then I don't know, probably I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I was teaching kids, and as I was looking out there, and by kids I mean elementary, and I was looking out there and I'm like, you hate this and I hate this. I was like, none of us we're not vibing. You know what I mean? And it's not my thing. I am not someone who can get up there and do that. But here's the deal. When I give, I'm enabling people who can. I'm giving them the ability to do what God has called them to do, to be able to make that happen. I think of teenagers, man, and I think of teenagers. And teenagers are so funny because they're you guys out here right now in the room. When you see teenagers in public, your thought is they're up to no good. That's what you're thinking. And here's the deal. There are people in this room, and you're probably incredibly intimidated by teenagers. The idea of leading a small group Bible study of teenagers, you're like, nah, I'm good. I'd probably rather go to war. I don't know. But here's the deal. When you give, you're enabling teenagers to come to know Jesus better. You're providing a space for us to do the ministry that God has called us to do, to reach that generation. We have a youth retreat happening in 2 weeks. And it's so profound what God does there. And I know that there are people in this room where the idea of you giving 2 nights to do that is like, no way. But here's the deal. When you give, you're a part of what God is doing there. Your giving enables us to do that. The amount of baptisms that come out of youth retreat every year, it populates the whole year. And it's only possible because of the generosity of people. Even when I think about like I don't know, I think of youth retreat. Like every year there are people who can't afford to go. And every year we're able to provide scholarships for them and we don't even think about it. And the reason why we're able to do that is because people are generous. What your generosity does is it enables us to do the work that God's called us to do. Even beyond that, though. Okay, so it does that, but also part of what generosity does is it reveals what's inside of your heart. You know, we live in a world that says you don't have enough. Everything, every commercial, every ad, it says that you don't have enough, that what you, and not only does it say that, it says what you have isn't good enough. And every time that you trust God with your finances, what you're saying to him is you're saying, wow, God, you have given me so much. In a world that that says that I don't have enough, every time that you give what you say, is you're saying, man, God, you have given me enough. And so it's a way for us, it reveals it in our heart, and it makes us part of it. And then the question, okay, then like the 2 maybe practical questions that come up is so like how much and how do I start? And so the question of how much, okay, I think that's like, so what is like the thing that I have to do to really to do that? And I would just say that question, man, is such an interesting question because you're not going to ask that when it comes to like giving your kids Christmas presents, right? You're like, what's the minimum that I could give them just so that they at least kind of feel loved, but not too loved? You know, like you're not going to do that. We don't approach that with things that matter to us. And I love the way that Paul does it, because what Paul does is I think he anticipates some of that thought process. And in anticipating that thought process, he does the ultimate mic drop just a couple verses later in 2 Corinthians where he says this. He says, for you know the grace of our Lord Jesus, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you by his poverty might become rich. So he's like, who is the example to give? What do you say to the person? What you say is you say, look at Jesus. And what was his example in giving? Well, he walked out of the splendor of heaven to give us everything. That Jesus, he gave so that he was poor, so that we could be rich. And so as we think about generosity, really, he's our example. You know, in the Old Testament, generally the way it worked is that people would give 1/10 of their income to the church. And in the New Testament, it kind of seems to argue that the 10th is a starting point. That what Joanna and I do is we have recurring giving set up, and it's set a little bit over 10%. And the reason why we do that is because when we took over at the church, we were like, we've always been tithing. And so we're like, if we're going to ask people to do something they're not doing, we want to do something that's a little bit harder for us, just so that we can ask people to do things that's hard for them. And so we have this thing set up. We don't even think about it. The decision's already been made. And then as we feel led, we give to other things. And I would say this. I think that led's one of those tricky words because it's not like the Lord's like, give to that. But it's more like, my voice cracked when I said that. He doesn't talk like that. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But no, it's like as we see a need, we're like, well, no, we want to be part of that, so we're just going to do it. And the question is, so how do I start? Okay, how do I start? Like, this is what I do, how do I start? It's crazy, okay? It's crazy, but this is how you start. Start. Like, that's it. Like, that's actually what you do. You just start. And hear me, okay? And this is like why I have these conversations, and someone might come to me after service and say this, and if you do, I'm going to smile and I'm going to nod, but I think you're maybe not being totally honest. But I will smile and nod. Where people will be like, hey, I will. but first. Hey, this is something that we know we're going to do it, but first this thing has to happen, okay? And hear me if that is your logic. I love you. I bet you've used that logic before. And I would bet this. I bet there's always been something. That part of giving is just doing it. It's just, well, I'm going to just trust him. I have people, and they come to me and they say this, and I think it's so funny that they believe it. And again, I smile and I nod, and I say, like, yeah, of course. And they're like, Pastor, if I win the lottery, that's when I'm going to start. And like, I love you. If you can't trust God with what he's given you now, you can't trust him with that either. Because to give away that amount of money, like that's a lot. That's a lot. Like, I'm just telling you that it reveals what giving does. It's a way for you to be part of what God is doing here, and it reveals what's in your heart. Second way that you can be part of what God is doing here is through serving the church. So you give to the mission, and you serve the church. And this is where I think people are funny, because they create this like false dichotomy, okay? And they'll be like, I'm going to serve, you're going to give. Or I'm going to give, and you're going to serve. And I just want to think about, like, let's just think about that in terms of obedience for a second, okay? Let's just pretend that you're like, you are going to commit adultery, I'm going to steal. Like, that's kind of weird, right? Like, that's not how we follow him. We don't, like, pick and choose the parts where we're like, this is the part that I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do this part. Like, that's not how he asks us to obey. And hear me. I don't know who you are. I don't know your story, but here's what I do know. I know that God has uniquely equipped you for his purpose. I know that there are people that you can connect with that no one else can. I know that there are giftings that God has given you that are easy for you that are hard for other people. And the reason why God gave you those things was so that you would use them for him. And Paul certainly leans into this in the letter to the Corinthians I read earlier. Look at this. He says, but as you excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in all earnestness, and in our love for you, see that you excel in this act of grace also. That when you serve in the church, it provides a place for you to excel in everything. It provides a place for you to operate in faith. It provides a place for you to operate in love. Because here's the reality of what we do every Sunday, okay? That what we do every Sunday, there is so much on the line. And I'm going to use some examples. I'm not speaking prophetically, so I don't want to pretend like I'm doing that. Like some people do. I'm just playing the numbers, okay? But, I mean, here's what I can tell you. Just this week at church, someone will walk through our doors, and they will have been told either they or someone they love has just been diagnosed with cancer. It's true. That this week, someone will walk through our doors, probably a couple, and their marriage is like hanging on by a thread. And what we represent here at the church is we represent a Hail Mary pass, their last shot before they give it up. That there are people who will walk in our doors this Sunday. And they are walking in our doors because what they're doing is they're giving God another shot. That there are kids and students that right now meeting on that side of the building, and they are feeling so overwhelmed about going back to school. And it's not because they hate school, that's probably part of it, but the part of it is because they don't know that anyone there loves them. They feel like an outsider. And what we have the opportunity to do is we have the opportunity every week to show them that God does love them. There are teenagers right now meeting in our youth service who are trying to figure out what's true and what's not. Every time we gather together, there is so much on the line. Like, a lot of churches are doing this trend now where they take off the last Sunday of the year, and we don't do it. And one of the reasons why we don't do it is because there's so much on the line. We don't want to miss an opportunity. Because you never know when someone's going to come in here, and this is going to be the moment that changes everything. And hear me, when you serve, no matter what you do, you are part of God transforming their lives. And you might be like, well, dude, that's easy for you to say. You're the one that gets to walk up on the stage and yell at everyone. And I would just say, that's the part that I play. But it's not, I don't think it's the most important part. It's the part that I play. That you have no idea how greeting someone at a door could make them feel seen. Especially think of all the stuff that people walk into this place with, and you to greet them at the door, you have no idea what that could do in their life. You have no idea how something encouraging that you could say to a parent about their child will go with them as they live their life throughout the week. Man, I remember this. I'm not going to say their name because I didn't ask them if I could. But when my son Jack was like 2 or 3, he was back in the pre-K. And there was a teacher, and it was Joanna picked him up, but she was like, Jack is so smart. And I've always thought he was smart, okay? But like, I'm saying it means so much to me. He's like 12 now. And like, I'm still holding on to the fact that someone said that to me. Like, you never know how what you say could do that. You never know how like showing someone around our property could be the thing that makes them stick because they feel loved, they feel seen. That most people, they make up their mind about what they're going to do with church long before I ever walk up on the stage. And here's the beauty of this, okay? Is that as you serve, you're operating in faith and love. And as you serve, you just never know where you're going to have a moment where God's going to help you see something that you've seen before, but in a new way. You're going to go up to somebody and you're going to say, how are you doing? And they're going to say, okay. And you're going to know they're not. And you're going to be sitting in service during worship, and all you can think about is them telling you they were okay, and you know that they're not. And there's something inside of you where you're like, man, I feel like I really need to follow up with that because there's something about that. And here's the deal. That only happens as you put yourself out there. And it takes all of us for that to happen. You know, and as I think about the idea of serving the church, okay, this is where, this is one of the many places in my life where my wife, Joanna, inspires me to no end. That there is not a person that I know that serves the church like Joanna. And hear me, there is no expectation on her. Like, I don't tell her what to do. I have that in my notes. I don't even know why that's in my notes. Like, that would matter. Like, yeah, that's going to go well. Like, get here, you know what I mean? But here's what she does. She gets here right after I get here, long before the first service. She greets people as they come in. After she's done with that, she goes and she leads a small group in kids. She comes, works the hello desk at 9:30. Then at 11, she's doing some stuff with the hello desk now, and then she makes it in and she teaches pre-K during the 11 o'clock service. And usually the only time she comes in the room is for the last song. I have enough time to kiss her on the head and then run up here and yell at you guys. And here's what I can tell you about her, though, is that when she comes home, she has stories of people that she's interacted with. She's able to meet needs for people that you wouldn't know, that she makes relationships with people. And the connections that she makes, to be honest with you, are far more important than the ones that I make up here on a stage. And I don't say this that you would do what Joanna does, because I think the worship team would feel really bad if everyone just came in during the last song. But I say this, that's the example. That what we need to do is we need to look at what God has asked us to do and to serve the church. And as we serve the church, you'll be blown away by how God will take the things that you do by just being faithful, operating in faith and love, and use those opportunities to help people know Jesus better. I mean, one of the challenges that we've experienced here in the church in the last 2 years is that we've grown by about 250 people on a weekend, which means there's that many more people for us that we need to serve. And in order for us to serve them well, we need people who are going to do it. And so that's part of it. So hey, as being part of what God's doing is serving the church. And then finally is this, and it's bring the lost. To bring the lost. That if you want to be part of what God is doing, you want this year to be a year where we see incredible things happen, is bring the lost. And you know, this is a pretty big picture look at the text, to be honest with you. But the first line is loaded. And Paul offhandedly, he says this thing, but it's got a loaded backstory, okay? He says this in verse 1. He says, "We want you to know, brothers, about the grace of God that has been given among the churches of Macedonia." Okay, it's 2026. It's really easy to assume just kind of the gospel has been, it is where it is, you know? But the reality is that the gospel hasn't always been where it is. That the reason why the gospel is where it is because people took it there. And so when Paul's talking about the grace that has been shown to the churches in Macedonia, he's talking about the grace that is, there are people there who didn't know Jesus who know Jesus now. And the reason why that grace is there is because Paul went. And the backstory is super incredible because he went there because that's exactly where God wanted him to go to help people know Jesus better. And you see the story actually in the book of Acts, in Acts 16, and it says this. It says, "And they went through the region of Phrygia, Galatia, having been forbidden by the Holy Spirit to speak the word in Asia. And when they had come to Mysia, they attempted to go to Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus did not allow them. So, passing by Mysia, they went down to Troas, and in a vision appeared to Paul at night. A man from Macedonia was standing there urging him, saying, 'Come over to Macedonia to help us.' And when Paul had seen the vision, immediately we sought to go to Macedonia, concluding that God had called us to preach the gospel to them." That Paul went, he preached the gospel, and the gospel continued to spread. That the gospel, that it's never been about a rival. It's always been about going places that it hasn't been. And for us, that really does mean that we have a responsibility, as long as we are here, that we have a responsibility to bring the gospel to people who have not experienced it. And the way that starts, is it starts with us looking at the circles of people in our lives. Looking at the people who we see all the time and realizing that God has put them there so that we would help them know Jesus better. Could be a family member who's away. Could be a friend, a coworker, a neighbor, I don't know. But we have to realize that it's no accident that God has put us around the people that he's put us in. And not only that, but that's part of why the church does the things that we do. Like, we're doing the snow glow Sunday next week. And the reason why we're doing that is because what we want to do is we want to make it easy for you to bring people here who don't know Jesus. Because we're just assuming, hey, it's the first of the year. People are like, well, let's get back into church. My New Year's resolution, whatever. And what we want to do is we want to give you a layup to make that happen. That's why we do the things that we do. Because part of what we exist to do is to help people know Jesus better. But I think we also have to realize, okay, because we do this thing, because the truth is like our example can do harm. Like that's true, our example can do harm. But we have to realize though, that though our example can do harm, we still have to use our words. Like I think that sometimes we give our lifestyle so much credit that we don't say anything sometimes. Like assuming that someone's gonna walk up to you and be like, I noticed you take really good care of your yard. Tell me about your Lord. You mow it every Wednesday. Like, please tell me, are you saved? What is it? You know, like, I think we do that. When Paul didn't just like go to Macedonia and make tents and hope people would watch him. He went to Macedonia, he made tents, and he told people about Jesus. And for us, like that's how we should live our lives too. You know, and for me, this is going to sound super unique to some of you because it's just like this isn't your world. But I live in the most Christian bubble there is. I'm pretty sure everyone I work with is saved. I'm pretty sure. Sometimes I don't know, but most of the time I think they're probably good. We believe you can lose it, so I don't know. But that was like a really big theological statement there that I'm like probably should have thrown out, but whatever I did. But we have this, I have this bubble. And so most of the people I interact with are Christians. And even as that's true, what I have to do is I have to discipline myself to put myself around people who don't know Jesus. Because if I don't, then I'm just going to find myself, because I'm not off the hook either, just because I get to get up here on the stage. I was thinking about this. This happened with me and Joanna. We went to dinner with some friends this fall. And they also live in a similar Christian bubble that I live in. Went to this restaurant with them. And it's a restaurant they go to a lot. And it was so interesting because as we're sitting there eating with this couple, everybody that worked there came up and talked to them. Like it was nuts. They'd walk up, they'd talk to them, they'd tell them a story, and then they would leave, and the friends we were with, they would tell us a story about how they brought them to church, or how they prayed with them, or how they were there for them during a time of need. And it just every people just kept talking. They kept talking to them. And then as we're getting ready to leave, we're heading out to the car, and they said to Joanna and I, they were like, hey, we didn't see this person, and I know they're here, so we're going to hang back, but we'll see you guys on Sunday. And they went back into the restaurant to check on someone who they hadn't seen that didn't stop by our table. And as Joanna and I are walking to the car, we're like, they literally are the pastors of that restaurant. And we both walked away feeling so challenged by it because that is so Christian. Is that you go into settings and you care about their needs, and then you show them that you care about their souls. And for all of us, we have this responsibility, we have this expectation, and it's only going to happen if we all carry it. And as I think about that, I think of this story that it's like a study that was done in 1960. It's something called the bystander effect. And it's a study that was done because of a very horrible situation. And basically what happened was in the streets of New York City and Brooklyn, there was a woman named, her name was Kitty Genovese. And she was like murdered just in the streets in front of everybody. And the crazy thing of what the story was is that what they discovered is they did research on this situation. was that there were 38 people who heard her get murdered or saw her get murdered. And the crazy thing was, though there were 38 people who either heard it or saw it, 0 of them called for help. 0 of them did anything to try to help her out. And the study was fascinating because they went to everybody, all 38, and they're like, why didn't you do something? And their responses were the same. They all said, we just figured someone else would. And I think for us, as the church continues to grow, or as we head into 2026, we can't assume someone else is going to do it. God didn't call someone else, he called you. We can't assume, hey, well, someone else is going to give. Someone else is going to serve. Someone else is going to bring the lost. No, it's on us. And it's a weight that we should carry. It certainly is the weight that Paul carried. He said this in his first letter to the church at Corinth, in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. He said, woe to me if I do not preach the gospel. He wasn't waiting for someone else to do it. He was going and doing it. And I think for us, that's what we have to realize. It's not about giving, it's about the gospel. It's not about serving, it's about the gospel. It's not about bringing people, it's about the gospel. And as we head into 2026, here's my prayer for you. I pray that you feel the weight of the gospel. And that you would see that the local church is a vehicle that God can use to advance it. And that we wouldn't trust someone else to do it, but that we walk out of here armed with the ferocity that says, woe to me if I don't do anything. Let's pray. Jesus, we love you. We thank you, God, for who you are. Thankful, God, that you're faithful. Jesus, that you have transformed our hearts by the gospel. Jesus, that though you were rich, you became poor so that we might become rich. And I just pray, God, that you would help us to see that, to wear that, to carry that with us everywhere we go. That you would help us not to be people who walk with you that don't carry any responsibility. I pray, God, that we would be people that do. And that, God, as we carry the responsibility of what you're doing, I just pray that you would use us. I pray for the stories that are going to be told. I pray for the lives that are going to be impacted. I pray, God, that as we look at 2026 at New Life, I pray that we would be generous. I pray that we would serve. And I pray that we would see people transformed by the power of the gospel. And God, as we do that, God will give you all the credit. It's in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Love you guys.
What an awesome. Hey, thank you so much for joining us online today. We hope that this service was everything that you needed it to be. And if you would like to find out more about what's going on at New Life Church, check us out online at nlspringfield.com. From there, you can find out more about our staff. You can see upcoming events. And if you would like to give to New Life Church, you can go to giving.nlspringfield.com. Have a great week, everybody.